Training Center. First time NFR qualifier Drew Horner. Thanks for hanging with us, Drew. We're going to visit here real quick. Drew, tough night last night in the team roping. Tough night for everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of them. Talk about your steer last night.
We had a pretty tough steer last night. The set of steers last night were the strong steers. Everybody kind of refers to them as the eliminator herd. Our steer did the same thing he did the first night, pretty much. Caleb Driggers had him the first round, and right when he nodded, steer looked off to the right, so it kills his barrier and makes it a tough start for him. And then the steer jumps off to the right and runs. So he did the exact same thing for us. Caleb even told me make sure he's right, and I thought I made sure he was as right as he could be. He's looking straight down the chute, and all of a sudden, right when I nod, he just looks off to the right, and then stutters there, and then just hauls butt off to the right. Buddy got out there, was a little bit late, and then was able to kind of get him back to me. But right when I was getting there towards the end of the arena, we kind of just want to stay on the average, and I reached over there and a little bit low-headed, and I just barely missed the right horn. So it wasn't too much fun for us last night.
Let's move on to better things. You won the round the night before.
Yeah,
Talk about that, man. It's your first time to Vegas, and you got your round win. So
yeah, that was
awesome.
I loved it. That was one of those times when we knew we had a good steer, and we're not going out there trying to be stupid or anything. But if we get a good start and we get a good steer, we're definitely going to take advantage of it. Steer stepped into me just a tick and was just right, and I felt good about it, and so I took a chance right there. And Buddy healed the first hop, great finish, and we were 4-2 on him, and we ended up splitting the round 3 ways, so it was good.
It is good. We also want to talk with Krece Harris right here. In Decatur, Texas, we have a NRS roping facility there that is second to none. I mean, from the lodging to the food to the saddle shop, the pro shop. Krece is kind of ramrods that deal, or he definitely does. But Krece, what do you got going on there in Decatur?
Well, it's like you said, it's the premier educational facility for team roping.
Yeah.
We do have other events there, but what I'm here to talk about this week is kind of what I did last year and the year before is about the NRS Training Center and how we teach and what we do. And that's the fun part about it for me. I mean, I don't ever get up and go to work. My office is an arena.
Right, sure.
And I get to be around people who enjoy the same thing I do. So to be there at the NRS Training Center, though, all the amenities that you could want, other than the hot tub. I talked about the hot tub. For sore muscles.
Maybe that's coming.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, training room is what we need.
Yes, sir.
So, but yeah, Krece, they're going to visit here for a second. It's a laid-back deal. We're streaming live on NRSworld.com. Hello to everybody out there. It's a Q&A deal. If you have a question, raise your hand, shout it out, and these guys are going to just kind of talk about team roping, also talk, what we do there at the training center. So I'll let you guys take it away.
Thank you, John.
Give them a hand, folks.
Good morning. Hope everybody's doing well today. You notice Drew's on that side, kind of by the back legs. I'm on the head side after last night. We figured we'd swap on. Just kidding. But hope everybody's doing good. Been doing this, this is the 5th day now. And what I like to do is talk to you about the educational side of team roping. It is not about gimmicks. It's not about trying to make this sport any more difficult than what it already is. If you've roped long enough, you understand that we have those highs and lows, right? You understand that we go to the practice pen, and there's some days that we rope really good, and there's some days that we don't. And what I push home on every day, of every clinic, of every lesson, is you've got to keep your fundamentals in place. You've got to keep that foundation in place. And to me, that's where most people get off base. They don't understand that this room that we're in can't be built unless this foundation's in place. Well, it's hard for somebody to go get better with their roping unless you have that foundation in place. But again, if Drew comes over and practices with me, we're not out there trying to work on how fast we can be. He's working on the same things on every run, whether he's reaching or whether he's kicking to the hip and freeing his horse up. And what I mean by that is he's got it in order. As a header, he's got to score. He's got to keep his balance in place and get squared up to his target to be ready when he gets to position. Whether or not he's going to drop 3, pulls, or kick to the hip. As a healer, my job is to get to position and stay in position and be ready to take care of my job. So that's what we're going to cover. I've talked about it all week long, and we'll continue for the rest of this show, but the same problems happen to each and every one of us. We give lessons on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, usually, there at the arena, and then we do clinics Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 36 clinics this year, 46 weekends are booked for next year. And that's what we do on a daily basis. So when I have students come in, what I'm going to try to do this morning is touch base on some of the things that probably happen to you. In fact, I know they will. I know they will happen to you because we continue to see it. Drew, you can handle the head side.
Not very good on the bill side.
But I talked about this yesterday. Again, core balance. We can work a lot on our swing, and we can work a lot on our delivery, on our groundwork, but you've also got to put your core balance into place. How many of you come from the school of, you were taught to stand up to rope? You can't rope sitting flat on your rear end, you got to get up and get forward. How many of you have heard that? Okay, I've heard it. That's what I grew up with. I've talked to kids, numerous kids this week that they rope calves right now. They've been breakaway roping, or they're already into the tie down part of it, and they're splitting the horns on a regular basis. It's not because they don't know how to rope. You don't come to me to learn how to rope. You come to me to get better with your roping. And 99% of the time, there's a piece of that puzzle that you've left out. So you've got to go back and put that piece in place, and then the catch is going to happen. For example, what I'm talking about, I'm going to set Drew up right here. And if he was roping calves, where would this calf be? If he's standing in position right here, because he's in position to head, he's in his own lane. But if he's roping calves, where would the calf be? It'd be right out here. So where would his shoulders be? They would be square to his target. Well, that's why I'm saying I have a lot of those calf ropers come in. So basically, they're used to this position right here, and then when they head, they don't ever open up and square up to their target over there. So what ends up happening is their breakover's late. Agreed?
Yes, sir.
The breakover is not in position by the time it gets to the right horn. That rope should be broke over by the time it gets to here before it comes across. Well, when your shoulders are square to your horse's head as a header, your breakover is past the right horn. So the first thing that happens to us is we accelerate our delivery. We push it and we drop. And you've heard somebody say you dropped your elbow. Guess what's happened? Guess what just happened? We split the horns. Okay? So what I really like to push home is good, solid foundation groundwork. And that is, he's going to stay in his lane. He's going to stay in his lane. Folks, and I'm sure you know somebody, but if there's one thing that I will go to my grave teaching, it will be, as a header, stay in your lane. We can lose our fingers dallying, but within 5 years, I lost 3 friends because they got in the steer's lane. Okay? They got their head horse behind the steer can't see them, the horse front legs tangle up with the steer's back legs, the horse flips. Now it's no longer your fingers, it's your life. So, if there's nothing else that you do, stay in your lane, okay? So he's over in his lane. His left foot's forward. I'm a huge proponent of teaching left foot forward on your groundwork for this reason. It makes it easy to square your shoulders to your target. If you step right foot forward, look at where my shoulders went. Not saying you can't rope from there. You need to be able to rope from there. But you've got to learn to rotate your hips and shoulders. So he's in position right here. Now he gets to put his left hand in place and start working on his swing. Go ahead. His tip is breaking over right here, out here at me. The lowest point of his swing is right here at the right horn, and it comes all the way across the left horn before it turns back up. So he's putting his fundamental in place. Here's the other thing that I'm going to keep talking about. His arm's probably going to get tired of this. Does everybody see his posture? Okay, you can go ahead and stop for a second. His posture was up and down. He's using his core balance. I'm going to go back to the question that I asked a while ago. Come from that school, you can't rope sitting flat on the rear, you got to get up and get forward, right? Okay? If I bow out over my horse, where's all my body weight now? It's over that horse's right front shoulder. If my left foot goes back, that means I have no balance. That means I cannot control the tip of my rope. So, Am I touching base on some of those practices that we have that one day we go out there and we rope really, really good, and the next day we come back and it's not so good? It's because we didn't go back to that foundation of keeping my core balance in place. Drew, go ahead and stick it on. Okay. When he roped right there, he had everything set up to where his shoulders are square to his target, and when he guided it on, he pulled his slack and he came back to his heels. I am a huge fan of teaching people to sit down and ride their horse after the catch, because it leads into this. Whenever you stay over the front of your horse when you're delivering, you're not going to ever hear me say that you won't lean. When you're on your horse and you deliver your rope, your toes are going to roll down in your delivery, at the bottom of your delivery. But when you rip your slack, you've got to come back and get on your pockets again. That's how those horses learn to rate. So, how many of you have had problems on slow steers that you get to that rope and you draw 2 or 3 hard running steers, and then you kind of draw a money steer, which is slower, and your horse wants to blow by, or gets a little bit strong right there? What's the first thing we do? We pull. When we pull, the left hand comes back, guess where the right hand goes? Goes forward. Now my shoulders are square to my horse's head again, guess where my tip goes? Up. That's why people have a hard time roping slow steers. I'm going to walk through this because Drew does it, but I'm going to let him rope it. But as we run up on slow cattle, especially if you're jackpotting, I like to talk about getting your tip down more to where I'm loaded. So it's low right here. It's too low for me to catch out there. But as I gain position, look at where my tip is. It's ready to let go of. If my tip is up, then that's what's going to cause all of this. So Drew actually has a drill that he works on stepping all the way through his throat. I'm a fan of teaching when you rope right back to your heels so you learn to get back in your saddle. That's how those horses rate. But at the same time, we've got to ride through that afterwards, because we're going to talk about that when we get to the heeling side. So go ahead and do that drill that you work on to keep your shoulders square. Yeah,
this is a great drill for keeping your shoulders square. You definitely have to stay in your lane, because you can cheat it. You can step outside or you can step inside. Either way though, even if you step outside or inside, it still forces you to square up to your target. But ideally you want to stay, your steers in lane 1, which is right here. Try to stay in lane 2. I don't know, everybody teaches different lanes, but try to stay in lane 2, which is about a horse width to the left of the steer's horn or the left of his head. So start back here about 30 feet away. And it's a great drill for delivery. I reach in this drill also, or I do it for jackpotting. To keep it to the simplest part of it, you got to keep it to the jackpot, what he's talking about. So keep your tip level above the tips of the horns, and as you get closer, your tip is going to drop, obviously. But stay in your lane, keep your shoulders square to your target, and all you're doing is walking. And then when you get to your spot, is you rope your dummy and keep walking by the dummy. Don't change direction in the dummy or in your walk. Keep walking straight by the dummy in your lane, and it keeps your shoulders square to the target the entire time. You can essentially mess up and walk over here. A lot of guys, you'll see a lot of kids playing on the dummy. It's a tougher drill than you think, because your first habit's probably going to be like right here, and you want to step away and stick like that. Don't do that, because that causes you to drop your elbow a lot, put a lot of English on it, roll your hand over, and that's not any delivery, which is not good. Nobody delivers. Nobody delivers. I don't know anybody that delivers like that as a top head or anything, because it rolls over the right horn. You see them get over there, you see them turning their hands over to get their slack, but nobody's in their delivery turning their pinky down. So the concept is to walk straight in your lane, keep your shoulders square to your target. When you get to your position, which everybody's position is different depending on what you're working on, rope the dummy with the proper delivery, both hands go into it, and shoulders are square to the target.
Okay. Everybody understand that?
Is that simple enough? I didn't really...
Again, these are drills that help you keep your shoulders square to your target. So our sport's no different than any other sport that's out there. I mean, we can't stay balanced and we can't stay consistent unless we keep our fundamentals in place. And the number one fundamental is we've got to stay square to our target. Yeah. If your feet go behind your shoulders in the saddle, guess what? You lose balance. You lose tip control. So the most common thing that we do when we nod our head is we want to chase those steers with our chin. You need to be chasing those steers with your horse's rear end. Drive that horse's rear end forward all the way into your delivery so you don't have to work so hard out of balance. Because, again, you're going to hear a lot of people talk about this. If they've been teaching, you're going to hear them say, you need to slow your delivery down. When he roped that last time right there, he was super fast with his slack, but his delivery was the slowest part of his entire run.
That's a good thing about that drill too, is it makes you have to completely open up your loop in order to catch it. I do it with big horns, and I'll do it reaching too. Like I'll do it from back here. When I start with big horns, I'll just, from back there, and you have to completely open your delivery up in order to catch. Like you can't make a mistake if you're walking straight by the dummy. If you make a mistake, you're gonna hit him in the back of the head, or split the horns, or wave it off even because you got your momentum going forward. So this drill really forces you to do everything right. You have to deliver with both hands, you have to deliver across the horns. Even if you're 3 coils back, you have to carry your loop across the horns, and it makes you keep your shoulders square to your target.
Does that make sense to everybody? I'll show you another quick little drill, because I've had those students that we'll get everything lined out and we'll get all this in place and everything's set, left hand's in place, and they'll just get to where they wear that out all day long. And then I get them on their horse, and this is what happens. They get to this spot and they just look at it and they keep swinging because it becomes muscle memory. It becomes muscle memory in their mind that once they get to position, they need to swing 4 or 5 more times. So kind of like what Drew just went through, if I have a student that has learned how to really stand in position on the ground and rope the dummy and their core balance is in place, then I'll back them off and I'll have them come walking at the dummy. That way they learn timing. And that is step with my horse's stride. So when I get to position, I'm ready to go into a delivery. So if you're having a hard time not taking your shot when you get to position, you can work on that just by backing off on the ground or walking all the way through it just like a rule. Because you know if you're getting ready to walk by it, it's going to be hard to rope it behind you, right? You got to take the shot. It's little things like that we train this right up here to teach the rest of our body to do what we need to do. Okay? Any questions up to this point? Need some more coffee? Hey, if there's one thing that I want to continue to go through, whether it is the head or the heeling, you're going to hear us talk about core balance. I've had Drew show the students over the last several days some of the drills that he works on to work on his core balance again. I try to make sure that I'm solid with my feet, because here's what we see a lot. If I see this on the groundwork and a student walks up and they rope the dummy like that and they pull their slack, in their mind they convince themselves that was a really sharp loop, and it was. But the problem is they're creating this muscle memory. So guess where their horse is going? Their horse is still lumbering that direction because they're not on the rear end. You take the heaviest part of your body, which is your waist up, and put it over the heaviest part of the horse's body, which is heart girth or withers forward. That means the rear end gets very light. That means they can't collect, they can't set a steer. That's when we start running into the other problems of injecting hocks, stifles, sore backs, because we're not helping that horse stay balanced because we're out of balance, okay? So just to watch somebody rope the dummy one time like that and stay in this position, that becomes a habit. And you're going to do the exact same thing on the horse, so that means you're going to bow out over your horse. It's okay to, if you're going to lean into your delivery, that's fine, just come back. That's the same drill he was working on, keeping his shoulder square. He can't keep his shoulder square unless he stays core balanced.
Yeah, as I say, even in that drill, you're still balanced the entire time. If you're walking and falling forward when you're walking roping the dummy, you have, like, it's not going to get tight. You're not going to pull your slack tight. Your horse you're going to develop the habit of what he's talking about. If you're staying balanced even in your walk right here, like, see how my body, like when I took a step, I still was pulling it tight right here. I'm still square on my feet. I'm not falling forward. It's not as much as a back on your heels pull, but I'm still balanced and using my body to pull that slack, so I'm sitting down with my horse and getting collected.
Okay? Does anybody have any questions? Because I'm getting ready to start talking about the handle and timing for a heater. I'm huge on teaching this to simplify it in your mind. Remember, I told you I want to keep it simple. The only way that we can keep it simple is to simplify it in our mind so we don't go out there and I tell my students during the clinics, I said, you're working way too hard for a not so good result. and that is when you're out there riding your horse and warming up, some of the best practice that you can get if you get home from work and you don't have time to wrap your steers and your buddies aren't going to come over and rope with you and things aren't ready, but you just feel a little bit too tired to get it all ready, saddle your horse up and go ride your horse and swing your rope. That's timing. That is timing. It is like being in a rocking chair, and Drew and I were talking about this a while ago. The most natural thing a roper is going to do is swing their tip down when their horse comes down in stride. I didn't figure that out on my own. My beginner students taught me that. Within 15 minutes of them not ever riding a horse and not ever swinging a rope, and you put them on a horse with a rope in their hand, they get out there and they learn to find the rhythm and swing in rhythm with their horse. It's really hard to swing your tip down when your horse is coming up in stride. Okay? So for me to simplify timing for everybody, the headers do it. When a header's striding, the rope comes back, when the horse comes down, the tip's coming down. Okay? It's the same thing heeling. So my timing, what I want everybody in here to understand, is your timing is in place with your horse's stride. Now, as a heeler, how does that tie together with the hop of the steer? And I'm getting ready to let him start walking me through this, because if I push, if I'm trying to push my students into this drill right here of heeling, that I want you to get out and do your first job, which is, as a heeler, your first job is to haze, right? So if I get out there and I create my haze, and that doesn't mean that I'm jumping up there by the head, I'm just out of the box before the header gets out of the box. And that steer recognizes me because we want to keep him straight, but I want to get to position. If I achieve position going down the arena, then I'm ready to rope. And what I mean by that is my tip is down in stride with my horse. The hop of the steer is matching the speed of your horse to the speed of the steer. Did everybody follow? Mm-hmm. Agreed?
Yes, sir.
So, I want to throw it all back on him because, in my opinion, the quarterback has got to lead this deal. He's got to get out from behind the barrier, he's got to get it on that steer, and then he's got to give me a chance and make me look like a hero. And that is, he handles the steer. He keeps the speed of the steer consistent, because if I've already matched my horse to the speed of the steer going down the arena, the steer's legs are back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the header has to take charge here and take responsibility for giving your heeler an easy shot. I mean, I've done it plenty of times. I mean, as roping with a guy that's a 10 heeler, roping with Buddy Hawkins, I mean, I kind of just tell him, hey, we're trying to win something, just heal him. But when we're jackpotting, it's a whole different mindset. I mean, I have to be able to control the situation as much as possible. You don't win anything by turning steers to be, by turning steers to be 6 at our level. I mean, just whatever. If we go down to the jackpot levels, you don't win anything by turning a steer to be a second off the pace every time. You have to be able to get out the barrier, and then you have to be able to set it up good enough. I mean, you can get it on them to be 5, but if you turn the steer and it switches out 180 degrees, or he's not hopping together or something like that, your heeler's going to have to take a few more swings, and you're going to be 9 on him every time. So this is where it's real crucial to do these drills like we're talking about, being core balanced, staying with your horse, let your horse collect, and then also keeping, it's not necessarily about slowing down a ton, but it's not speeding up. If anything, you need to slow down a little bit, but you need to just take the steer and keep him in that same rhythm, and all you do is take his head and change the direction of him so you have control of the hop, and the feet are coming together like a pogo stick. And where Krece can come around, he's already in time going down the arena with his left front foot of his heel horse, and that steer just turns, one swing over his back, boom, 2 feet. It's like roping a pogo stick.
Yeah, I've had students over the last 10 years come in there to NRS, and they understand timing. They understand timing, that when they come through the corner, they know their tip has to be down over the steer's back when the steer's legs are back. So as they come through the corner, they're thinking, okay, my tip needs to be down. Is my tip down or the steer's legs back? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, catch. And then they run another 10 steers, and guess what it is? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, catch. And by the end of the day, I've got them thinking, if you'll get out there and get established here, then you don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to catch, because we all know the more those steers go across the arena, what usually happens? The hops get worse.
Yeah, start to pick up the pace a little bit. Left fence comes into play, so there's a double corner because you got to come back if you're not already.
Your best shot is your first shot.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to teach students to rope fast. I'm just trying to teach students to be ready. And you take that same run and I get out here and I create my pocket and I create my corner and I get established, my tip is down through the corner. I'm just locked in on my target, which is the rear end of the steer. If the header keeps that speed consistent for me right there, and he slows it down just a little bit, when you slow those steers down in the set, the legs come together in the hop. If you speed them up, they spread apart. Okay? So, if I'm in position, then this is a layup. If I'm out of position, it's a 3-point shot. If the header doesn't handle the steer, it's a 3-pointer. But I want to ride for position to have a layup every single time. Okay? That's what we're trying to achieve. Now, we talked about this a little bit earlier this morning. If Drew loses control of his horse a little bit right there, and his horse gets strong, and that steer whips away from me a little bit, what do I have to do? I've got to sit down and ride my horse. He didn't give me that shot. That steer's legs spread. If we're trying to make a rodeo run, yeah, I may have stepped up around there a little bit higher. We talked about Dakota Kirkenslager yesterday. But Dakota is one of those guys, I mean, last year he's unbelievable to watch. But he's one of those guys that he's kind of locked in, and when he sees that rope goes by, he'll step up there towards your shoulder. And it's just like working cattle. When you're at the hip, you're driving. When you're at the shoulder, you're turning. So he'll step up there to the shoulder and start his own corner. As the header's getting his dally, he's stepping up there to go ahead and start that steer towards him, so it softens that corner. So it makes that shot a little bit easier, but it's a blind shot a lot of times. So that's what I want everybody to think about. Now, I'm going to walk you through some drills on this. Did you have anything to add on that?
No, I was going to actually ask you about if you want to talk about speeding up if the head horse gets kind of out of control. Head horse gets out of control.
Right.
Let me get it.
No, you're good. You're good. Heaters, for your groundwork. Again, we can work a lot of stuff out right here on the ground. I have seen so many ropers come in, and when they rope the dummy, they swing over the backs of these dummies like this. Okay? Because we are taught to swing over the back of the dummy. That's what we think that we're supposed to do on the ground. Here's what it creates, especially if the dummy's high. Now, if you've got a dummy that's pretty low to the ground, like on this particular dummy here, the rope right sled, I'm always going to swing behind it. I'm going to swing behind the legs, because what this is teaching me is it's teaching me to get my tip down, down, down. So when I go into delivery, I'm already loaded. I don't have to change. What you see a lot of heelers do is they'll come through the corner, they'll be in time, and when they achieve that position through that corner, they don't let go of the rope. They take 1, 2, 3 more swings, and then they quit riding their horse. And when they quit riding their horse, they get strung out on the front end, which makes the dally twice as hard. Okay? Here's why I do this. Again, keep it simple. If I'm swinging over the backs of these taller dummies on the ground, guess where my muscle memory is? It's high. So when I get on my horse, guess where my tip looks in comparison to the steer's back? See how this right here is going to cause that domino effect of I've got to pull that tip down? How many of you run into that problem? Yeah. Thank you, John.
That's also an issue.
But again, it's those little mistakes that we make that we don't understand how to fix them. We don't understand how to go fix them, and the way that you can fix that is retrain your muscles to get your tip down lower, so when you come through your corner, you're ready to go into a delivery. Okay? Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about right here is learn to use the tip of your rope. One of the best drills. I want to keep my core balance in place, whether you're left foot forward, right foot forward, you got to keep those shoulders square. But whenever you deliver your rope, do this drill to where you get to where you can do it 10 times in a row without this. Okay? Learn to swing the tip of your rope down to that target and use the tip of your rope. All the while, you're keeping your core balance in place. Okay? Every one of those pictures that we see in the magazines, those heaters are out of their saddle. Why are they out of their saddle? Because every one of those pictures we see in the magazines, they've already got the steer caught. When that rope goes by that hill horse's head, what happens to the hill horse? They stop and they drop their rear end. When they drop their rear end, theirs lifts out of the saddle. But as soon as they start to roll over and pick that slack up, they're trying to get back here. So you've heard people say, keep your chin behind your saddle when you're heating. You're going to lean, but you're going to lean at the bottom of your delivery to finish. But then you're going to try to come back out of it. I hear people say, lean to rope, lean to rope. You gotta understand, that's to finish. That's how we should say it, lean to finish if you're gonna lean. But do not bow out before you go into your delivery because you're cueing your horse to stop on their front end. So again, this little drill of learning to use the tip of your rope, stay balanced, keep your core balance in place, and swing it down there and stay here. I would rather see somebody on their groundwork bend their knees than bend over. Okay? Watch those videos in slow motion. At every one of those clinics, we will take a video of an open jackpot and we'll put it and frame it, frame by frame by frame. And when I'm talking to my headers, I'm talking to my headers about their left hand and their left foot. And then we start working on the delivery. And then we work on handling the steers. Okay? When I'm talking to my heaters, I show all of my heaters running down the arena. Now look at their timing. The tip is down at 10 o'clock when the horse's front left leg is under their shoulder. And the steer's legs are back. Going to the steer, they haven't matched timing. So again, it's going back to what we were talking about a minute ago. If that steer accelerates right there, then I just lost my timing. I've got to ride my horse through it and set it back up. Or I've just got to step up and around and be a little more aggressive if I'm trying to make a rodeo run. Because our jackpot runs and our rodeo runs aren't going to be the same runs. Okay? We're trying to make those average runs. Does everybody understand what I just did here? Okay. When you're going into your delivery heaters and you get to where you can do this consistently and learn to use the tip of your rope and swing it down there, then when you turn loose, wait on your tip. Get to where you get into a habit of watching your tip come through, then let go. The longer we hold on, the further your tip goes through. Then you're actually going to go into your delivery at the right time when it makes contact, okay? That way you're following your tip all the way down. The most common mistakes I see heaters make is they get in this position, their tip's probably too high, and then they bow out and they hit a front leg. They let go way too soon. How many of us does that happen to? Exactly. And it had nothing to do with you not knowing how to rope. It had to do with the way you rode your horse. And then number two, kind of like what Drew was talking about on the delivery. When he goes into his delivery on those horns, his delivery is here. He finishes for his slack right here. I see a lot of heelers try to finish out on their delivery by rolling that hand around. Does everybody see how I threw my bottom strand out that direction? And that's usually what happens, and you really get to see it good on this carpet because it's slick. And then number three is they don't turn loose of their slack when they deliver their loop. We've had this effect. We get in there and everything's set up, and then we watch our loop go all the way through and shoot out. So if your loop is getting smaller on you and it's shooting all the way through, you're not turning loose of your slack strand when you turn loose of your loop strand, okay? Three very common mistakes made right there. And the one of holding on to the slack strand, the people that I see it do, the people I see do it the most are people who tie on it. I don't know why, they're already dallied. They've already got their dally. But I'll watch them, they'll go in there, their rope's tied off to the saddle horn, and they'll hold it so they can pick it up. And you're talking about tough habit to break. Okay? But those mistakes right there are what we see on a daily basis. So for us to fix them, we just go back to that fundamental groundwork. And that is, if I want to have core balance in my saddle, then I've got to have core balance on the ground. I can't be bowing out on my groundwork. I had somebody ask me the other day, and I'll let Drew simulate this for you. But left hand. Go ahead and stick it on him, Drew. If you're having a hard time with your left hand, we know that in our delivery, our left hand is supposed to meet our right hand out there at our target. So if you're pulling your slack with your left hand, then don't go take your rope off. We haven't done this. Go ahead and stick back on him. It is mental discipline. Mental discipline. So if his left hand moved it all right there, put your left hand back in place, drop your slack, now pull your slack again. Do it 5 times before you go take your loop off. That way you're training that left hand to stay in place. Little things. Little things like that, okay? Little things like that to where the mental discipline is going into place, because we all go through it. We all go through it to where we start pulling slack with left hand. And we're not paying attention to what we're doing with that left hand.
Are you talking about separating hands this way?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I understand.
Yeah, as soon as, like right here, he pulls his slack as much with his left hand as he does his right hand. And what ends up happening is when you do get on your horse, you just moved your horse over, now you miss your slack, you just added seconds to the clock. If you get your doubt. When all we had to do is slow down to be faster.
Staying right here with it. And then even when you dial it, typically it's going to cross up. 90% of the time you're crossing your hands this way.
I do. I'm that guy that whenever I'm roping the dummy, if I'm making those mistakes, and I see it on videotape because I'm huge on using videotape, but if I step up and I rope that dummy, and my hand moves like this, and I see that on videotape, then I'm going to make myself stay here for at least 5, 6, 7 times for 2 weeks until I get my muscle memory back in place. But again, I'm not grinding it out. I'm just trying to mentally discipline myself to stay sharp to where I am getting better at my game. Again, the catch is super easy. If I go execute the catch happens. If I don't go execute the catch, it's 50-50. Okay? Does that help you understand how a lot of times that we don't go to the practice pen with the goals that we need in place because we're out there just happy to rope? And there's nothing wrong with that. We do it for fun. Because the guys that are doing it for a living, we're here watching. But for us to go enjoy it more, it's that mental, and I always like to cut up about this. That catch is that mental belt buckle that we win. That catch is that mental saddle that we win. So you go home at night and you get ready to take a shower, go to bed. You rope 9 out of 10, you're pretty pumped, feeling good about yourself. Come back the next day and you rope 3 out of 10. You're not so happy anymore. And then we hear it every day. Man, my roping got so bad I was ready to quit. Agreed? Why do I put myself through this misery? And we go out there and we work a little harder and a little harder and a little harder trying to catch instead of working a little harder on why we're not catching, and that is, again, your fundamental steps. Get your fundamental steps in place. It's very, very difficult for you to be consistent as a header if you're bowed out over the front of your horse and your tip is loaded up over here. You have no balance there and your tip is in the wrong place. Okay? It's very hard for you as a healer to catch consistently. And I'm not talking about bad handles. I'm talking about catch consistently 2 feet if you're crawling out over the front of your horse.
Yeah, because it don't matter if it's a bad handle or not. If you're riding your horse right and you're in time with your horse, those steer's feet are going to come together at some point, and you're going to read that. If you keep trying to get in position, you should be able to heal a bad handle, essentially no matter what. I mean, that's a different mindset. But you got to be riding your horse, and there's no reason as to why a healer should miss unless the header just gets the neck and just runs away. But you should be able to ride your horse, get to position, and stay there and wait for that shot to come, and just keep swing, swing, swing. When it happens, when he comes off the ground, if he falls down, it's just right out of it, just straight there.
Okay, and healers, you've got to be looking for that. What he just talked about. I've had 2 years ago at the BFI, I had a guy ask me, said, you know, all those videotapes are out there. I mean, Patrick Smith's got a DVD out right now called Driven. Best healing DVD I've seen ever. I mean, he did a great job with that DVD. And, you know, you go through all those runs and man, it just looks so easy and so smooth, and people make that comment and they say, y'all, you just make it look so smooth and easy, it's effortless. And it's not that, it's just being prepared, it's being in the right place. If I've worked on my fundamentals, the catch is gonna happen. And that guy asked me there at the BFI that year, he said, somebody needs to make a DVD or a video on how to rope behind headers that don't handle cattle very good. And I said, the exact same way. I said, and he did, he asked me that question. He said, how do you catch those cattle? I said, the exact same way if the handle's good. The healer job is to rope the back end of the steer, not the front end of the steer.
You can't control your header. You got to react to the situation.
So my job as a healer is to get out there and get in position and follow the hip of the steer, not the head, the hip. So if the header jerks him away, I've just got to ride back to the hip. If the header didn't give me a shot right there, that's not my fault. If the header gave me a shot right there and I didn't take it, that is my fault. If I wasn't ready, that is my fault. And again, going back to the horsemanship side of things, these horses that stop deep on their rear end and really slide or get their rear end dropped way down, it's because those heelers are helping them go into that stop. If you ride your horse's rear end into your delivery as a heeler, they actually help you deliver your rope. They help you deliver your rope because your tip finishes. If you don't ride into that, then they dictate your delivery and you'll short out on your delivery. How many of you in here have seen it happen with calf ropers? You see it all the time, right? They take that hard swing and they kind of get forward right there and those calf horses scotch off on them. And when they do, it pulls them down and they can't let go of the rope. And if they do, most of the time it's a 50-50 shot or a miss. Well, it's the exact same thing heating. If I don't ride my horse all the way into my delivery, then it makes it very difficult. And again, I'm going to plug this right fast because this is why I rope the rope right sled. That's why I rope the rope right sled. I have watched my students over years that we have used them all. And we've tried to rope the sleds with the legs moving. And I watch my students get to position and they go to watching those legs moving. Guess what they quit doing? They quit riding their horse. Now their body's strung out over that shoulder and now we're picking up a bad habit. Do I think there's a purpose for the legs moving? You bet. When you understand how to ride your horse into this. Because what I tell you about timing quality, your tip's going to be down and the steer's legs are going to be back as long as you match the speed of your horse, speed of the steer. Your tip's already going to be down with your horse. You just got to be ready. Okay? So again, simplifying it in your mind. Simplifying it in your mind. You know, another thing that I go through, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but I put a bones. I have a bones on my rope sled at home for all my clinics. The horns are stationary. The reason I rope stationary horns is because guess what a header has to do after they catch? They have to keep riding their horse. You rope a dummy a lot of times with the horns and they pop loose. All of a sudden you quit riding. Guess what your horse thinks? I don't have to go any further. Okay? So it keeps you sharp. Now, gang, if you have a sled with turn loose horns, don't get me wrong here. I think roping sleds are great. But if you have a sled with turn loose horns, make it a game. Make it a game that you get your dally and you keep your dally as long as you can and keep that rope as tight as you can without the rope coming off those horns. Now you're having to ride your horse. You've got to mentally discipline yourself to stay sharp right there. And you're not going out there creating a gimmick or anything. You're just going out there and working on those fundamental steps, and that is, Drew's going to ride his horse after the catch. He doesn't quit riding right there and duck out. He's got to keep riding up and around right there to keep that steer shaped. Okay?
Yeah, you got to push up with the steer there and make that corner a little bit easier for you to read it.
So that's every bit of that. Every bit of that is exactly what we go through on a daily basis there. From ground zero on the groundwork to where we get on our horses and we start roping sleds. And if we're having a hard time doing it on the sled, it's not going to do us a whole lot of good to go do it on cattle. But we've got to get to cattle sooner or later. And I have some steers that walk out of the chute, turn around and look at you and say, "Are you coming?" I mean, they just, you learn on slow cattle because it gives you a chance to work on your swing, work on your core balance, your left hand, and your feet. And I'll have my students, especially my headers, I'll have them go down the arena several times, say, "I'm not even going to work on the delivery, we're just going to work on core balance and swing and position. Core balance, swing, and position." And then once we get that into place, they start relaxing. When they relax and it comes out of their hand, the catch just happens. Okay? But that's what you have to make a habit. That's what you have to make a habit. Does anybody have any questions up to this point? Yes, sir.
Would Drew say that he doesn't want his head horse to race?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Would Drew say that he doesn't want his head horse to race?
Would I say that I don't want my head horse to rate?
You don't want your head horse to rate?
No, I want my head horse to rate.
He's got to rate.
I mean,
That's a great question because we can touch base on this. Here's why those head horses move out. Okay? Again, if he runs up there and he catches one and his body does this right here, where's that horse going to go? It's going to go that way. He's going to go that way. If we're jackpotting, he's going to run up there and do what? Sit down right here to make that horse rate. Horsemanship 101, how do we teach our horses to stop? Sit down and quit riding. So, if he's going to jackpot and he's asking that horse for his life from A to B, when he sticks it on those horns, he's just going to sit down and let that horse rate off. The first thing we want to do is we want to pull right there. But the cue is to sit down and quit riding. And I shouldn't say quit riding. You got to sit down.
Yeah, sitting down is riding. I want my horses to rate. If they don't rate, then it causes my rope to pop off, and then also it causes, say, like he doesn't rate. If he doesn't rate, then I end up having. I mean, in our level, we have to just get left, no matter what the situation is. If my horse doesn't rate, though, I got to get left because we're trying to be fast, and my heeler's good enough to go ahead and heel him. And if I'm here, I just got to rein out. If he doesn't rein, I'm running off that way. But too bad, we're trying to win something. But ideally, I don't want that to happen. 5% of the time it happens. It's just part of the game. But when you want a head horse to go, when you're blowing at him, you want everything to happen right like I just did right there. You want your horse to come here. He's collected. Rating is not necessarily slowing down straight. Rating is when you're delivering, when your head rope goes on, your horse is slowing down in his lane, but he's still keeping that slowed down speed throughout the corner. It's more like, it's not rating and staying here, it's rating throughout the entire corner. You have to rate when you're delivering, or else you're going to pop it off the horns most of the time.
Did all of you watch the round last night?
Okay. Say no, because I missed.
Okay, for example, Nick Sartain and Rich Skelton, they won the round last night. But when Nick is coming across that line and he's reaching and dropping rope, and he catches, guess where his body went? As he's coming here, he shifts his body weight. Well, that's the cue to start stepping that horse out, especially on this setup. Every one of these guys are kind of moving across to get that horse started, but as he got his dally, he sat back up to help that horse get powerful again.
And come back up the fence.
Come back up the fence. Those horses can't do it if you stay over his shoulder, but if you try to get behind that saddle horn, then you're helping that horse get back on his rear end. Now he's balanced. He can do his job. And the finish is huge. The finish is huge. So last night, I mean, they took a steer, used that steer. He reached, did the same thing he's been doing, but as soon as he ripped that slack, he got his horse started, or he got that horse started with his body weight shifting, and then he sat back up and helped him. He rode him. Again, that's not our jackpot run, is it? But he almost made it look like a jackpot run. It was that controlled, just by the way he rode his horse. You're talking about, right. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking so much about being up and out of the saddle, because you're really not. It's hard to get up and out of the saddle like this when your target's over there, but you're rotated and you're opened up. So what I like to talk to my headers about is you're really, when you leave the corner of the box, if you're sitting square in the corner of your box and your target is over there like this, your move is this. It's not this. Okay? You're going to rotate those hips and shoulders to where you're still in the saddle here, but you're off in this pocket. That's right. I'm trying to get opened up and tipped down now. That's why you see some of these guys when they back in the box at the NFR, where do they load that rope? They're already back here, so as they nod, they're coming out and down with that first swing. They're ready. Jackpot style is not going to look like that, is it? It's going to be more like this, nod, then leave with their horse. Okay? Again, great question. We practice that, because if I don't practice my scoring and being balanced and leaving with my horse consistently, I'm not going to go be consistent with this. Yes, sir. But again, I mean, like Drew even did yesterday. He stood there and he did this right here. Which is, but he's still trying to rotate back over here. You have to square your shoulders to your target. How many of you read the sports medicine article in Super Lips magazine? Mark Duncan. Mark was he was at one of my clinics early last year, and we got to talking about it. And again, some of those common mistakes that I see students make, they round out. So in other words, header nods their head, and then they straighten their back like this. So they have this S posture, what he called an S posture. Okay? If you're in an S posture, you're locking your shoulders. You can't rotate.
Yeah,
right.
You need to be strong in your lower back.
Yes.
You don't want to bend your spine where you're weakening over the top. I have a problem with that actually, so I have to work on it a lot. When he's talking about is you get to the front of your swells, I point my toes down, or I try to at least put my toes down. Keep my feet, I don't want them behind my shoulders, but I want them straight below my hips. And my shoulders, my chest is coming forward to rope. But I'm not leaning this way. My spine is strong, and in golf it's a spine angle. Like you don't want to change your spine angle. The same concept. In roping and riding, your hips are at the front of your swells. That's where your core balance comes from with your horse, and that's how you get riding with your horse. And your chest is strong, and your lower back is strong, to where you can also turn and rope your target over there. Even if you come Chad Masters rope, you steer at the one you're riding 2 years ago. Yeah, exactly. I like my tip to be above the horns, and it's going to drop obviously the closer you get to it. But that's rodeoing and at a higher level. Jackpotting, it's get your tip to where it needs to be. And it's easy to keep it there, right in position, and that forces you to ride better too and rope right there when you get there.
Yeah. Again, you're going to hear so many different things. Like that deal right there about being strong in your core here is key, in my opinion. It's key. Most of the times when I have a problem with ladies that come in and they're roping, it's what we just talked about, because they have been taught from day one, sit up straight, don't slouch, since they're little girls. And so they get in the saddle and everything is so proper. And you've got to relax this up here, but you've got to go strong. Because every time I S-curve my back out like that, then it locks my shoulders. It's the exact same thing as being in this posture. I can't function. But if I'm in a relaxed state with my shoulders and what they call a neutral posture, then you can do whatever you want in the saddle. Little things. I'll talk to you about something else. Stirrups. Just remember this. When you stand on the ground, you have a balance because you're very comfortable on your own feet, and you've got a lot of platform to stand on there. When you get in the saddle, you ride a narrow stirrup. Guess what you have less of? You have less balance, because it's going to be super easy for your in a 2-inch or a 1-inch wide Knoxville stirrup. It's going to be real easy for your toes to roll down your feet go behind your shoulders. You get a 3-inch deep roper or a 3-inch bell or a 4-inch bell, then you have more platform underneath, so you can push on the balls of your feet for balance. And you want your weight distributed evenly, 50-50. But again, everybody in here is, if you're left-handed, it's just the opposite. But if right-handed ropers, we've all heard that you catch with your right hand, you win with your left hand. If I don't work with this just as much as I work with this, that means I've got to work with this hand and this foot. Because it's real easy for this to happen right here. I'm big on analogies. I talk about analogies all the time, but you go to a circus act and they walk a tightrope, what do they do with their hands? They separate them. They separate them for balance. If I pull on my horse, guess where my right hand goes? And every one of you in here can practice it. You can put your left hand right here and try to do that, and it's not comfortable. Do that and look at how it freed up. So the further apart my hands are, the more balance I have. It's the little things like that we think about and we focus on. And again, pick you one at a time. Pick you one at a time when you go home and you get in the practice pen. If you go work on your scoring, scoring's the key to winning on the head side, in my opinion.
Yeah, I proved that last night.
Right? It just amazes me. We go to the Georgia State Open every year, and there's 600 open teams at one place. And you got a Garrett Tanazi that comes in there and wins first and second. Speed Williams. I can go on down the line. But it's that hitter that seems to be scoring the best is going to win that deal. And they get in that rhythm the first day, they make the finals come back, and they're still in that rhythm, and it's just, look out. okay? And they may not be right on the barrier every single time, but they're getting that start with their horse. And they're doing that through their core balance. They come across there and they're balanced ready, okay? Do you want to add anything? Go ahead, Hans. Sure. Sure.
Yeah, Trevor Brazil, I mean, that guy's the best horseman in the PRCA, I mean, hands down. I mean, he leans more than anybody, but he's not leaning with his entire body. His feet aren't coming behind him. He's actually using his horses completely. I mean, that's why that guy wins. It's because he can make a dink look good. I'm telling you, that guy's a horseman. And yeah.
You hear about all the computers going down?
Sure. But again, what we're talking about right there is the game's changed.
Yeah, the game's.
The game is not being done like it was 30 years ago. Our fundamentals are pretty much the same, but you know, 30 years ago, we rode to the front of the chute when we nodded our head. At those clinics, I see students come in there, and that's what they're thinking is break to the front of the chute and get to the steer as fast as they can. And I've got a sawhorse, and I'll take that sawhorse and I set it up right there at the front of the box and wall off the front right half of the box. So their horse has to stay in the lane. And it's fun to watch when they jump, but it only happens once, okay?
It's not fun to do.
No, but I will take that sawhorse and set that sawhorse up so those riders, all of a sudden, they start thinking, oh, don't worry about going and catching. They start thinking about riding. And if they ride the position, they're going to catch a lot easier. So that's kind of going back. We used to get to the front right there, and we were in this position. But then what do we have to do? We had to get away. Now we're just widening. Speed Williams, I mean, he comes, what, makes the NFR how many times he went? He comes back in, and all he did is instead of pointing his horse at the front of the chute, he pointed his horse to a spot where he wanted to catch from, catches, still fast, but then he slows down, and everything handles instead of getting jerked away from that heel. Okay?
8 World titles later.
Yeah, it took everybody a decade to figure out how he's doing it.
Anybody got any questions over here? Middle game, heading, healing?
Yes, ma'am.
Potentially ranch roping.
Yeah, it is. You know, here's what I always say. Whether you're on the ranch, because I was not deprived as a child. I grew up on the King Ranch, you know, South Texas, and I hear people say ranch roping is not the same as arena roping. Here's my deal on this. It is the same. And the reason it's the same is because it doesn't matter if my target's off over there running through the brush or if it's a yearling out in the wheat pasture, right? We've got to match that tip to wherever that target's at. Guess how I control the tip of that rope? I've got to keep my balance in the saddle. Period. I hear that all the time about, you know, if you're gonna go to the ranch and rope, you got to do it a different way. No, the catch is the same. If I blow up in the middle of a yearling out in the pasture, I've got to have my tip loaded, and I can't be bowed out over my horse, because if that yearling adjusts on me, I'm stuck. And we all know how they just duck and dive. We also know it's kind of like calf rope. When a calf roper is achieving position, that's their best shot, right? Because the calf's still running straight. When we get behind them and track them, what do they usually do? They start moving left to right. If you're in the brush and you're trying to rope in the brush, you just got to have it set, and you can kind of see your environment, but you've got to have your balance in place and ride with your legs. So that's, you're never ever going to hear me take it away from the horsemanship side of it. I don't get to go compete every day like these guys do. But the one thing that I try to stay sharp on every day is my horsemanship. Because again, if I'm having problems with this, chances are I'm not doing something so wrong.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that made me better. Over, I mean, of course, of however many years. I've only been roping for 9 years now or so, but I think horsemanship is what made me where I'm at now. I mean, I bought a horse that was almost too good for me, and I had to learn how to ride him. And I mean, it was huge. And I sincerely think horsemanship and balance and core balance is the key to catching consistently, and eventually getting to a point where you can go back in the box thinking about winning.
You leaving this back here?
Core balance is is everything, and horsemanship is everything to team roping. You have to be able to handle your rope, you have to be able to catch any situation, but without having any poor balance, your chances of catching are reduced by a significant number.
I agree with you. 80% of our game is horsemanship, if not more, in my opinion. I enjoy, when I'm teaching, I enjoy riding my own horses and training horses just because that's what keeps me sharp in my mind. So it's a blast to be able to do it, but please don't ever take that out, because again, it doesn't matter if you go to the ranch. If you're in the dragging pen or the branding pen, you can rope on the ground, but you're not going to drag them very far, right? Unless you're on a horse's back. So just keep your focus in the center of your horse, and it'll make this so much easier. Okay? I guess we're out of time. I was just starting to get on the roll, John.
You're quite the talker. Ladies and gentlemen, Krece Harris, Drew Horner right here. Give them a hand. We appreciate y'all.